We're ready for a Buffalo Bills Victory Monday chat with Mr. Chris Brown, who joins us on the Western Hotline. Chris, good morning. It was a great night at the stadium, of course. Perfect weather. And I think maybe the best game the Bills have played all year on all sides of the ball, because we've got a lot of good things to talk about today.
Yeah, probably their most complete performance of the season. And I think, you're reminded that, you make changes in the offseason to improve your roster, make it better. Your draft choices come in, they get used to how things operate. And I think we were reminded last night that sometimes it takes 6-7 games to get everything lined up exactly the way you want. And it seemed like that all kind of came together for the Bills last night with their performance, because that was clearly the best defensive performance of the season. And I think we also saw some of the best individual performances of the season. Cole Bishop comes to mind. Joey Bosa comes to mind chiefly. But there were other guys that were involved in the effort. And I think what you saw was maybe the most complete performance by the team as a whole as well.
Yeah. These games, Chris, you know how it goes. Every one of these Bills-Chiefs games, we're asking if we're seeing anything, or do we think it will translate to another meeting later in the season, because they often have another meeting later in the season. And for me, the number of times they hit Mahomes and that completion percentage number, whether they're playing him differently, whatever, they had more answers in this game than they have maybe ever had for him.
Right. And, we hear Coach McDermott talk all the time about how the rush needs to be married up with the coverage. And I think the insertion of Maxwell Hairston, albeit still on a platoon-type basis, because he and Tre'Davious White alternated possessions on defense, and the insertion of Jordan Hancock in the secondary has brought an enormous amount of speed and athleticism to that group on the back end. I think it's only a matter of time before Hancock and Hairston are full-time starters back there. They just need more experience with each passing week. But what they did was help kind of cover up things on the back end, because there were a couple of instances where the pressure that got to Patrick Mahomes was clearly coverage related. Because there was even a couple of plays where I was kind of counting in my head, the old 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, and I was getting to 3 and 4 seconds before the Bills were getting to Mahomes and finally getting him on the ground. You got to credit coverage with that.
Yeah.
And I got to say, going into the game, I was resolutely concerned that the Bills did not have enough guys in their secondary, and not many teams do, to cover all those weapons, because they go 4, sometimes 5 deep. And I challenge you to find a roster in the league that can go that deep with their defensive backcourt. So I felt the pass rush had to help the coverage, but they were really kind of symbiotic in their effort last night.
Yeah, the options they could have, Chris, athletically, because Kansas City comes to that game with the speed receiving core, and the Bills began the year with a secondary that probably didn't match up well with that. But Hancock and Hairston, and then Bishop having the game that he did, and they're moving him around. He was playing in the box on that 4th down stop on Rice. Probably his most complete game. You had 2 rookies out there with him, and I think maybe more than ever you needed that performance.
Right. It was clearly Cole Bishop's best game in a Buffalo uniform. Eric and I were kind of talking about it on the broadcast and even off air, and I just kind of felt like Cole Bishop arrived last night, if that makes sense. The team had only 5 pass breakups in the game. He had 4 of them. And that play at the end in the end zone was insane. He's going against a 6'4" receiver, and he times his leap perfectly to rake the ball away from Tyquan Thornton for a key pass breakup there. And, he had other plays, and I think he also exerted a little bit of a physical element to the secondary too. Drilling Kelsey in the back of the end zone at the end of the first half. He had a couple other hard hits. So I think Cole Bishop was literally growing up before our eyes, and you could see the interaction between him and his teammates on the sideline in between series. And we always see the Bills players encouraging one another, but the way they were looking at him and dapping him up, it was like, yeah, that's what we've been waiting for. thank you for delivering that for us because we need that on the back end.
Chris, there's no doubt losing Michael Hoyt is a big loss. 7 really good quarters for the Bills, playing in different spots. I guess how big of a loss do you look at him as being?
Yeah, it's a tough one for sure. I was watching after he was injured, and we knew right away watching him come off, it did not look good. We had no idea what it was because we didn't see anything that looked terribly, ill-fated, if you will. And then, we started seeing the replays. CBS will often run replays during commercial break to show their broadcasters what they're going to come back from break with, and we are privy to seeing that. And so we instantly saw it, and watching it, I was transported back to watching all the replays on Kevin Durant when he was on the Warriors, and we watched that replay 17 times of his Achilles rupturing. So I knew what they were looking at, and then you could see it, and I was just like, oh, geez. So really tough. I mean, he just came back, and I think it was very evident in the Carolina game, just the injection of energy and on-field intensity that he brought to the team, and then seeing him refuse to get taken off on a cart. He told them, I'm staying here, I'm sitting here, I'm watching the rest of this game with my teammates. And then to see the players come over to him, Joey Bosa was like heartbroken. He came over, he took a knee next to Hoyt while he was sitting on the bench, and Hoyt's explaining to him what happened. And if you could see the expression on Bosa's face, he was absolutely crushed by the news. And he kind of held Hoyt's hand in his, and he put his forehead down on Hoyt's knee, almost as if to, like, say a quick prayer for him. The team was clearly impacted by what had happened to their teammate. It's going to be hard to replace because, as you said, they use him as a movable chess piece in a lot of different places. And while it might be Landon Jackson time in terms of calling somebody up to step up and step in, they're going to have to use multiple players to replace the role he was starting to play for them.
Chris Brown on the Western Hotline on that Hoyt news. Yeah, I mean, he's been so fun to watch. I mean, even Chris, going back to the preseason, I feel like Bills fans just getting a taste and then losing him. It's tough to hang a cloud over a win that was this complete, but it feels like the Hoyt news has effectively done that. As we approach the deadline, do you feel like there might be movement there? I mean, this is a position that the Bills had, of course, keyed in on and tried to shore up, and it looked like they've done a pretty good job with that. Does it vault to the top of the list for Brandon Beane as he's out there shopping for help if he decides to make a move?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it has to be part of the conversation. I wouldn't be surprised if, he and Sean McDermott and the personnel department get together and say, have our priorities shifted in anyone's estimation? And then they're going to probably hear from everybody sitting in the room. And, do you move it up the list? Is there other things that still supersede it? So that's a conversation that the personnel department's going to have today. And then the second part of that is, well, that might be nice that that's a priority if you deem it so, but then you have to assess a position that costs an awful lot of money in most cases.
Yeah.
So how do you navigate that knowing you're tight on the cap? And if you do decide you have to do that, do you have to send dollars out for dollars coming in to make it all work? So I think there's a lot of hurdles in front of Brandon Beane. He's been able to expertly clear a lot of those in the past to make things happen. We'll have to see just what he is capable of doing, knowing all the things that are working against him, like the tightness up on the cap there in terms of not only the kind of player you'd like to have, but one you can afford.
We also didn't get much there on the offense, Chris, in this conversation. Allen looked comfortable in this game. And Kincaid, it feels like when he is available to them, that is really what can make their passing game tick, because the downfield passing game has been on watch, and it feels like Kincaid is the guy that is really, again, making that happen when he's healthy.
Yeah, he's a fantastic middle of the field player, and he loses people. There are times where I want to go back and go watch NFL Plus Pro or some of the other tape just to watch his routes. Like, I'm going to put him in a search this week just to see all of his plays. Yeah, it's funny. My my wife, who was at the game, she said, Josh and Kincaid, when I watch them play, it's like they're doing a dance. And, leave it to a woman to kind of describe it that way. And I think it's accurate. They just seem to have this harmonious relationship in the passing game that works uncommonly well. And I'm not saying it's Brady Gronk, but, it just seems like there's a familiarity there and a confidence there in the passing game that just seems very, very partnerish, if that makes any kind of sense. And those guys are a heck of a tandem right now. And I think we also have to give some credit to Joe Brady because that was a heck of a game plan that they had yesterday. A lot of those quick release passes to neutralize the third down exotic looks that Spagnuolo throws at quarterbacks and can often confuse. I thought that was a brilliant way to neutralize what Spags does to put his team in an advantageous situation when the down and distance favors them. So I thought Joe Brady called a great game in terms of taking that away from Spags, and it's a big reason why the Bills' offense was able to stay on the field much of the night.
Chris Brown off the Bills win over the Chiefs. Next up, it's Miami, and of course, the deadline is tomorrow. Chris, thanks for the time. We'll talk on Friday.
All right, enjoy the rest of the day, guys.
Indeed, Joe's going to this game down in Miami. The
first Miami trip for me.
Yeah, that's exciting. Very exciting.
I like the. It's good timing too, right? Is it perfect timing? I'm probably not getting a very competitive football game.
I don't think you're getting a competitive game.
But
no.
Everyone's riding high from the Chiefs win, and they're playing a team that is like, this is the teardown.
Yeah, selling off pieces.